All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today, guys, this just popped into my brain. I really believe this is like the real life Wolverine. You know, the guy who just heals from everything, physical pain, but not only physical pain, he's taking it to the next level. He's taking it to the mental side, the spiritual side. And this is why I'm excited to get him on the show here, because he is the founder of Convergent Healing. He is also an author and a hypnotherapist. And I'm excited to bring him on because he's healed himself through unconventional ways, through the alternative methods of Western science and medicine. And it just explodes the mind of what can be done. But I'm not going to steal his thunder anymore. He has an amazing story, and I'm excited to bring him on. His name is Peter Bedard. So, guys, please welcome Peter to the show. Peter, good to have you on.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. I love sharing my message. It's fun.
Oh, man, I'm excited to have you on. And so, Peter, for the people who haven't heard about you or your work, could you share a bit more about, I guess, how you got started and where the journey began and where you're at now?
Well, my work is primarily focused on healing pain, and I consider any form of pain to be the same thing, whether it's physical pain, spiritual or emotional pain. Mm-hmm. And the brain doesn't understand, there's not one neuro pathway for physical pain and another one for, emotional pain or mental anguish. They're understood, pain is understood pretty much the same way. Mm-hmm. And so I had to heal myself of quite a lot of pain. My body was just absolutely destroyed. And all that was really offered me were drugs and surgeries. And the surgeries at first were amazing because they put me back together. My body was shattered into little bits. So to have that was awesome. But then, follow-up surgeries might help. They may be able to do some stuff, or wanting to replace parts, knees and joints and stuff like that. I just wasn't going for that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like the possible, it might kind of explanation of surgery that mm-hmm. was being offered to me after I was put back together, these sort of exploratory surgeries in many ways. Uh-huh. And so I healed myself, and I had excruciating amounts of pain for quite a long time. And I was able to eliminate that. So my message is that when we heal, we need to heal on multiple levels. We can't just look at pain as being a physical thing or emotional thing or spiritual thing, whether it's a broken heart or a broken bone. Mm-hmm. Say my football player that comes to me and I work with them and they racked up their knee. They obviously have physical pain. Their knee mm-hmm. is broken to bits or whatever it is. But the mental anguish is almost often more painful than the physical pain. That worry, that panic, that how am I going to be able to support my family? Am I going to lose my contract? Am I going to be able to, are we going to lose the season? That sort of intellectual pain. And then the spiritual pain of the broken heart. This guy has been training for the majority of his entire life to play this game. And now he doesn't know if he's going to be able to play it again. Mm-hmm. And that broken heart, that's a personal, deep, pain needs to be healed as well. And so people tend to make the assumption that they only categorize pain as being a physical thing. Yeah. And it's not. And even physical pain has a mental and spiritual, emotional basis to it. So mm-hmm. healing has to be done on all three of those levels, however you do it. Wow.
And I know this, Peter. I know that this wasn't something that you just discovered one day and you woke up and this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I did it. And I know this thing. There was one event in your life where surgery could not put you back together. The surgery could not put your soul back in your body. And tell us about that. Share with us about that one significant event that changed your life, man.
Sure. So a few months before, just a handful of weeks actually, before my 18th birthday, I was driving along the road late at night in a little suburban community on a Motobicane, which is like an early moped, a very small, skinny bike, mm-hmm. motorized bike. And somebody came up behind me and pushed my bike into a parked semi-truck. So they pushed my back tire and I impacted the semi-truck. I jumped out of my body. I got to watch that experience, which was very interesting. And I really think that from doing work with people in death and dying type of situations, I really have come to understand that sometimes when we go through a death experience, we're not actually in our body. We have the choice, I think, to actually jump out and actually observe, or to learn the lesson if it's needed, of what that pain of that process of letting go is like. So I jumped out of my body. I watched my body hit the semi-truck, and I died. I bounced out into the middle of the street. I observed the whole thing. I went to the other side, and I had a conversation with God, and or whoever that was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most amazing, incredible, blissful experience. It's hard to talk about it and describe it, because words don't do it. Words, they're limited in the way that we can actually explain what it's like on the other side, the freedom, the joy. I jokingly say this to people, but I'm very serious at the same time, that death was the best thing that ever happened to me, and that I highly recommend it. And I hope that my sharing that sort of takes away people's fear of dying.
Mm-hmm.
So many people spend so much time and make decisions based on their fears. You know, their fear of not having enough, their fear of dying, or of the pain, or whatever it is. And those are limiting. They really cause us harm in many ways. Mm-hmm. So if you can live your life to that point of life is this wonderful roller coaster, and I'm going to get to the end eventually, so I might as well enjoy this awesome up and down crazy ride that I'm on, instead of putting off for so often. So many people put off or don't want to talk about death or those experiences, and it's actually a very real part of life.
Wow, I've never had someone, and you say you're not putting even the closest words to describe that experience going on the other side here. And I'm like, wow, like to have someone describe as freedom and joy and all this pleasure there. And then what did it feel like then, Pete, to wake up again and be like, oh, I'm back here. Right? What's going on here, right?
I was absolutely pissed.
Yeah.
I was really angry. When I was on the other side and I met this person that was talking to me, and he told me I had to come back, I got extremely angry. And in that anger, I think, was the thing that brought me back. I went from this absolute blissful state of being, of absolute pure joy, to being back. And I didn't go back in my body. I was so angry about that when I did come back, I was sort of floating above the scene of my accident. And by that time, there were paramedics there, and they were picking me up off the road. And I was literally saying to myself, I'm not going back in there. I am not going back in that body. And I remember my consciously thinking, wow, this must be how ghosts actually happen. I think ghosts are actually real, because if I don't go back in that body and I'm not back on the other side of the veil, or wherever that was, heaven or wherever that was, if I'm not over there and I'm not in that body, I'm disembodied, which is what a ghost is. So, okay, I would choose that at the time. I would choose that over being back in that body. And then the next memory I have, I was waking up in the hospital. I was back in the body.
So it's like, get back in there. I don't care what you say. Get in there.
Yeah, you're not done yet.
Yeah. And it took us from there, right? I mean, like, you woke up, you're angry, you're upset, you know, everything's probably broken or shattered, and you're in so much pain. And we talked about this, that this was the gold in the garbage, that, you know, this is a little metaphor you were using. And talk us through the next few years where you discovered that, you know, you're living in the garbage basically, and you don't see the gold. And talk us through this, man, how you got through that.
So I came back into my body, and my body had been shattered. My left leg had been literally shattered into lots of little tiny pieces with either a ligament or a muscle, something attached to it. So there were little like puzzle pieces of bone. That was all that was left of my leg. And I split this wrist open, split the wrist open here. That bone popped. I lost all my nerves in my right hand, and I'm right hand dominant. I had diagnosed brain damage that went undiagnosed for quite a few years. And it was just a fog. I was walking around in this anger and this chronic, constant pain that became this sort of cascade of more pain. That's of anger and resentment and losing my life purpose and how I knew how to exist in the world and how I knew how to express myself. All that type of stuff just led to arthritis and asthma. Of course, I had to learn how to walk again. I developed fibromyalgia and bronchitis and sciatica and severe back pain in addition to the sciatica. I had hip problems and one leg longer than the other, and I had anxiety and depression. And, you know, at one point my hemoglobin was splitting and shutting down my organs. My white blood cells were overproducing and attacking my red blood cells. It was just this cascade of constant pain. Yeah. And it wasn't until I did what I call in my book, I call stepping out of the fog. I actually decided that, hey, this is my life and this is all I have, and I'm going to make the best of it. And I had to walk out of that victim mentality. I couldn't blame that person who killed me. I couldn't blame that anger anymore or all of the other resentments that I had and use those as excuses. I had to take absolute responsibility of my life. I was on that bike. It's my life. It's my breath. It's my body. And that doesn't make it okay that somebody came up behind me and pushed me into the back of a semi-truck, but it takes my power back. And so I get to step into the responsibility of me, which means I get to run my life now and not the pain. And that's really when I started to heal, and I started finding all kinds of holistic therapies to actually help me feel better, because the doctors were amazing. Yeah. But after they put my leg back together, there wasn't much else they could do. They kept offering possible surgeries. Yeah. But I did things like grow my cartilage back, which according to Western medical doctors is impossible to do. So, hey, I did it. You know, I got rid of my arthritis. That's supposed to be something that you can't do. Once you have arthritis, you're always going to have arthritis. And according to the doctors, it's just going to keep getting worse. Well, I got rid of mine. So there are very real, holistic, and even cutting-edge Western medical stuff that people can do. And I started becoming a friend, making a friend of my pain. Okay. And to learn what my pain had to teach me. And that was huge. Because, you know, our entire culture is set up to avoid pain and to shove it down and ignore it. And I actually now help people talk to their pain.
Wow, man. I love the way that you're phrasing this, Pete. I mean, there's something that sticks in here with me is like, you know, going through all that suffering, going through all that pain, believing in that injustice, right? The injustice that someone else caused this all to you. I mean, like, and I know you glanced over this, and I want to bring it up here because for the people who are feeling in that zone of injustice where it's clearly not my fault, Peter. Yeah. What was it that triggered you to be like, you know what? I'm tired of blaming other people. You know what? I'm tired of being the one that is suffering and in pain. I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to own it. Like how did that shift actually happen for you?
You know, it was a combination of things. I got tired of being tired. Yeah. So I came to that end where either I was going to live or I was going to die. And that was a very real choice. I had an opportunity to end my life again, and I really didn't want to do that. So I had to figure things out. There was a point where I was in such pain. I had a huge flare-up, and I was at the time living from paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. That was my whole existence. And I didn't have time to heal myself. I was too worried about survival. And my back knocked me out again, and I couldn't move, and I had time to think. And I started to understand that the way I was thinking was causing me a lot of that pain. Yes, there was physical, bony pain. But the way I was thinking about myself, about the pain, the messages I was sending to my body were highly abusive. And I started to understand that I could send a different message to my body, to my nervous system. And then I started going and experimenting in holistic practices. Somebody told me about an acupuncturist, and you know, I'm an old guy. This was good 30 years ago. And acupuncture wasn't all that popular here in the United States. I knew it was this thing about needles, but I didn't really understand what it was. And I think a lot of people don't understand what it even is now. But I went out and I just did it. And I started to understand that there's energy meridians that move through the body, and the needles can open up and move that energy. And I crawled on my back into this guy's office because I couldn't move any other way. And I literally walked out of his office. And that was a turning point for me. I was still in pain, but my pain was down to, instead of an 8 or a 9 on a pain scale, 0 to 10, I was back down to a 2.
Yeah.
It was manageable pain that I could, function with. That was a huge miracle. And it was during the 90s, and I started looking around and seeing what medicine was doing and how they were talking about this cocktail of drugs to work with people on HIV and to work with people on cancer. And I thought, well, I don't want that. But what would a holistic cocktail look like? What would a healthy, holistic cocktail of healing look like? And that's when I started to stumble upon that idea. Well, all pain exists physically, emotionally, spiritually. That means I have to address pain on all of those levels. So maybe that's my cocktail, and I started doing things, mixing these ingredients of working on the physical level, on the mental thought level, on the spirit level, all at the same time, and creating my own cocktail of healing.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love the way you're putting it, Peter. And, this leads so well into the next phase, right? Which is where you're talking about befriending pain and acknowledging the pain, rather than what we try and all do is avoid the pain and run away from the pain and hide the pain. Because this reminds me of one of my most recent talks here with Yarik Robbins, son of Tony Robbins. And he was saying, Richard, not many people are willing to go through pain and accept that more guys, especially men, need to go through pain to grow. But and this is what I'm guessing you're leading into here, and that's why I'm excited to get your point of view on this here, Peter. Is like, what do you mean by befriending pain, and how do you actually befriend pain?
So, we have a relationship with pain whether we like it or not. And most men, our relationship, or what we're taught to, is that pain is something to avoid, and we have to ignore it, and we have to shove it down and not express it, because if we do, we're weak.
Yes.
And I like to challenge that. I work a lot. Well, I have this subgroup of clients. My clients kind of fall into a couple different categories. And I have this one category of clients that I work with, and they tend to be this kind of machismo kind of guy, which I love. They come to me, and they maybe are ex-military or security forces, or they are athletes and jocks or something like that. And they come to see me because they don't know what to do. They're at a point where they're sort of lost, and they're in pain. Like they come back from one of the wars, or they come back from something, and it's just it's a constant for them. Yeah. And they have a relationship with that pain, but that relationship is one-sided, and it's them yelling at the pain or making it wrong or bad or punishing it or being embarrassed or ashamed of it and that type of stuff. And to me, that's actually a weak man. It may be the man that on the outside in movies and stuff like that, it's the one with the big bravado, that's like going to screw everybody up or going to beat you up or whatever it is, that kind of machismo kind of guy, which I don't do very well, obviously. There's that kind of guy. Or there's the guy that actually is stronger, where he takes a minute, he's present with his pain, he listens to it, and he responds from it. Whereas the other guy is extremely reactive, right? And he's always in that survival mode. It's a constant fight.
Yes. And
so it's a very one-sided relationship. It's the pain is coming at you, and then you beat it up and push it down and shove it away. So it's this very sort of bully type of a relationship.
Yep.
And I ask people to actually be present with their pain, and I know it takes a lot more strength to actually sit there and just be absolutely present with your space, with your pain. I call it holding space, understanding it absolutely, and saying to it, okay, whether it's, let's say it's an anxiety, it might be a physical thing. Again, it might be a mental thing. We'll say it's an anxiety issue for our example.
Yeah.
And it's this fear. And the fear is perceived as a weakness. And in order to manage it, they're shoving it down. But that fear keeps coming over, and eventually they start having panic attacks. And the panic attacks, if you look at it from an outside point of view, those are actually really good things, because it's all that stuff that's been shoved down that's actually getting an opportunity to vent out.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we shove it down. It's going to look for a way to come out. I say it comes out sideways. And it comes out as that anxiety. It comes out as an addiction. It comes out as a tumor. Wow. And when we learn to actually address it, to be with it and sit with it, when we learn to say, okay, I'm going to step back and I'm willing to make you my friend. So, mm-hmm. Richard, if you were the embodiment of my pain, nobody else can see you, right? You're like in the movies. Nobody can see you. You're my invisible friend, but I know you're there and I see you wherever I go, right? Mm-hmm. I hear you. I see you. I know you. Isn't that what pain is like, right? Yeah. It's with us. Nobody else can see it. They maybe can see the result of it in our face or, how we hold our bodies, mm-hmm. but they can't see the pain. And so instead of my saying, Richard, and saying horrible things to you, like I said earlier, like I can't stand you. I don't even want to say it to you, but I can't stand you. I'm embarrassed of you, right? But if you're my pain and I say, hey, Richard, you know what? I know you're in pain and I'm sorry and I'm willing to listen to you. And you know what? I know that when I hurt, when I feel loved, I can do anything. And that love makes me stronger. Mm-hmm. So, Richard, you're my pain. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to actually be willing to say I love you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be willing, instead of beating you up and making you wrong or bad, I'm going to say, I'm going to make you my best friend. And because you're my best friend, instead of telling you to go away and I hate you, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask you, all right, what do you need in order to feel better? Mm. Just in our little role play there, right? From the experience of saying, I hate you, to the experience of saying, I love you, and what can I do to help you feel better? What do you notice? What do you feel?
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's this sense of energy and what you say is like acceptance. And this is, exactly. It's like that space, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, Peter loves me. So then I can just do, you kind of feel like you can be who you're meant to be. So if I'm pain, it's like, okay, I'm going to express all of it. And because I think there's a side of me that also cares about you, Pete, right? As weird as that sounds. And I'm pretty sure that's true in pain as well. That's why it exists. So that's what comes up for me, man.
Yep. And now if you're my pain, right? Mm-hmm. And I not only say I love you, but I say, hey, I'm willing to listen to you. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to actually just be with you. Like a friend, when a friend comes and they're really angry and upset, right? You give them space. They jump and down, they yell and scream, they say horrible things, whatever it is, right? They do all that kind of stuff, right? And then about an hour later, they go, oh, God, Richard, thank you so much. I feel so much better. Thanks for listening to me, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the same thing happens to our pain, right? When I just listen to you have that panic or worry or fear, and I just listen to it, the voices, that loudness, that pain starts to drop down automatically and always. Mm. And if I then say, Richard, what do you need in order to feel better? Because I've been doing things and it's not working, right? The way I've been thinking has actually been causing more pain, right? My worry, my fear, all that type of stuff, right? So, okay, Richard, you're my pain. Give me something to think about instead. What would actually help you, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody bothers to ask the pain. It's kind of like the 17-year-old rebel that's really messing up, right? Mm-hmm. They're totally messing up in school, and everybody's wagging their finger at them. Their parents are, their friends are, teachers, all that type of stuff. And nobody bothers to ask the kid, so how are you going to fix it? Everybody's telling them, right? So what if we actually just start to listen to ourselves, to these parts of us that are hurting? And we actually say, what can I think about instead? Because what I've been thinking about hasn't been working. And if your pain doesn't respond right away or doesn't know anything, right? What if you say, well, all right, what if we thought about the stars? And what if we studied astronomy? Would that help you feel better? Because it's not thinking about your pain, right? Or what would, if you wanted to go and think about meditation or walking on the beach or anything, right? Rainbows and unicorns. What if you just thought about rainbows and unicorns? You're not going to send that same message of pain to your body anymore. Gotcha. And there's an opening for wellness. There's an opening for healing. And that dialogue just starts to grow organically within us.
Wow, Pete, man. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm like, this takes it to the next level, right? Where it's like, you can create that space, but then it's about having that ability also just tap into yourself. And it's basically you're talking to yourself here and being okay with like, it's like, I imagine like pain is like the little child who's just screaming and just in so much like frustration. And, you're basically coming in and just giving it a big hug, right?
Sure, sure. It very well can be. Sometimes our pain is like a younger version of ourselves. Sometimes it feels like this empty void, this empty black nothingness, or a storm, right? Or it feels like punching. It feels like that type of thing. Pain for everybody, it shows and comes into us, or it takes an understanding of itself differently. And so for each person, if I was to ask somebody, okay, well, what does your pain look like? Can you give it a shape? That helps, because our brain then can have something to visualize or imagine or think about with, right? Because pain is often so overwhelming and so big, especially when we get up in those upper numbers of 8, 9, 10 level of pain, right?
Yep.
And when we can allow it to step outside of us and take on a shape and a form, our brain can actually grab onto an image. It's male, it's female, it's got a certain color, it's got a certain shape, and it allows us to be able to conceptualize and build a relationship with it. If we don't do it, it just feels so innocuous and so vast and so big that there's no understanding of it.
Yeah. And I love that you put it down that way, so that we got to bring it down to a level where we can understand it and put a lens to it to actually see it, rather than if it's a huge vast void, like you're saying, then it's like, whoa, I don't really want to like go there, because I don't know what that means. And it's beautiful the way.
And this goes true for all kinds of pain. Some people have lives where they're physically not in pain, but they are mentally always in panic about their finances, right? There's that panic experience, that money pain, right? And it becomes so big and so overwhelming, and it just takes them over, that they feel powerless. They feel completely consumed by that fear, right? So when you can actually make that fear, that anxiousness, your friend, then you have something to work with, even financially. So it's interesting. I've helped people, like business executives, be able to go in and look at that worry, that fear, that sort of away from motivation, right?
Yep.
That they are that's always in their life, that's always beating them up, right? And sort of turn that around and let that actually lead them. And it's amazing. I look at pain as a calling. It's something that is in our lives to make us bigger, to make us more powerful. And we have a choice. We can either be consumed by it, or we can expand and learn from it. And that's what pain pushes us to do. So even in the financial sector, in that kind of like executive type of mindset, people will get overwhelmed and fearful by these experiences, and they will feel it just as at a broken leg. That fear, that panic, that worry. And when we make friends with even that kind of pain, then their financial situations turn around. And it's not their head that's telling them how to fix everything. They learn to get into that intuition, that pain itself, that it starts to guide them even in making business decisions. And so it's really interesting how we can take this kind of concept and use it for any form of pain at all.
Wow, Pete, I just had to create space for that, because I'm like, this is like unbelievable, awesome stuff that you're sharing here, and it pains me, Pete, that we gotta start wrapping up this show here, and I gotta befriend that. I gotta create that space and be okay with that, because hey, this just means there's more to come, and there's more to come.
Exactly.
And so, Pete, we're going to go into our quick fire question rounds here. And the first question I want to ask you here, Peter, is like, obviously you've experienced a lot of this pain, and I've experienced a lot, but it's not just through your experience. You've done a lot of studies, a lot of reading as well. And so if someone wants to learn more about how to accept pain and create that space for pain, is there a book that you'd say is a total must read for anyone who wants to learn how to do it?
Well, there's a book that's just out that was written by my friend Kate Montana. Mm-hmm. It's Kate with a C, if anybody wants to look it up, Kate Montana. And it's called The E Word. And it's a book about the ego. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's this talk all the time about how the ego is bad and we have to get rid of our ego. And Kate is so wonderful. She has such an amazing way of dealing with this because the ego is so needed. We need the ego just to get out of bed in the morning. And so Kate's work I find really inspirational because it's about finding that marriage between the physical world that needs the ego and the spirit world that the ego really has no space in, that the ego has to walk away from. And it's interesting. That's one of my favorite books right now. And I find it really inspiring and helpful in understanding how to bring a spiritual life into the physical world and without having to be a renunciant.
Awesome. We'll add that into the show notes. And it sounds like we should get Kate on this show too, because I'm like, whoa, that sounds super interesting. Right?
Kate's fantastic. I'd love to introduce you.
Awesome. We can do that afterwards. And next question I have for you here, Pete, this is what we call, and this is a favorite question of mine that I've just rediscovered for myself, is like, so called the time travel moment, Peter. And so if you could go back, Pete, to any moment in your life, 10, 20, 30 years back, right? Any moment, what moment would you go back to and what new piece of advice would you tell your younger self through all the experience that you have now?
I would go back to a moment where, because one of the issues that I also struggled with was body dysmorphia. I grew up as a dancer, and that was my career when I had that accident and I lost my ability to dance. Mm-hmm. And I had spent my 20s, 30s, even part of my 40s hating my body because I wasn't able to do the things that I could do when I was 17 prior to my accident and all that type of stuff. And when I looked in my body and I looked at myself, my brain saw a monster. Mm-hmm. And I had to finally listen to other people. And other people told me, hey, you're not a bad-looking guy. It's okay, that type of thing. Somebody maybe even found you attractive. But I couldn't accept that. Mm. And so I would go back to a time probably in my 20s and say, dude, relax. You're okay. And not only you're okay, you're kind of cute. It's all right. Just relax.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. And especially it's so timely because I think by the time this gets released around Valentine's Day, even that, some people are just going to feel that they're not pretty enough. And so, it's always important to remind ourselves that we're the harshest critic. And so just to give that.
Absolutely. It's so interesting, especially men. I make an effort to let the men I know in my life, because women, they love it. If you tell them that they're beautiful or you're gorgeous or, they love it and they take that in. It lifts their spirits. And so I like to do that for my female friends. I adore doing that. It like changes their day. But I started to do that for my guy friends. And at first they were like, what? Like, dude, like kind of like that. You know what? How often does a guy get to hear that they're handsome or that they're beautiful? And there's a difference between beauty and handsome. And handsome is kind of like, oh, okay, great, thanks. But beautiful is a very powerful word. And it doesn't mean just physical, right? We've always been taught that beauty is something from within. Beauty is this overall sort of thing. And to say to a guy, you know what, dude, you're beautiful. So they kind of step back. And every time I've done this, a guy will get this huge smile on their face. Like, it just brings that spirit up. And so to recognize just that in each other on a level of love, on a level of spirit, on a level of connection, I think is really important. And there's a power to that because nobody, there's so much negativity and so much hurt in the world that when you just acknowledge somebody like that and say, dude, you're awesome, you're beautiful, it changes your vibrations.
And I love the distinction you made between handsome and beautiful, because you're right. I think the word beautiful is a strong word. And then, but it's always been tied with the feminine side, you know, and then that's why I'm like, don't call me beautiful. Just say I'm handsome, right? And it's just like, you know, it's acceptable. But I love that you bring it up, and I'm excited to start using more of that, right? And putting some of my guy friends into what's going on, bro? Right?
But just hear the vibration. If I say to you, hey, dude, you're handsome. It's okay, right? Notice that, right? Now, if I say to you, man, you're beautiful, what do you notice?
Yeah, like you said, that big smile comes out. And after you deal with the what's this going on, what's Pete's real agenda going on here, and it's just like, I'm going to look beyond that. It's like, yeah, I am beautiful. And
there you go.
I love it, Pete. And the last question here I have for you, Peter, is, you know, we're talking about your mission, how you're on a mission to instill more wellness in this world. And so I want to ask you here, what does true wellness look like to you?
So wellness is when all the parts of us are in harmony. It's when our mind understands what it's like to be still, right? As well as what it's like to be very active and engaging, you know, but it's that balance. It's when our spirit is fulfilled. It's when our spirit is enlivened and excited about something. And it's when our body can understand what it's like to be in motion without any kind of a consciousness to it. You know, real wellness is when we don't have to think about who we are in the world, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's just we get to be.
Yeah. Awesome. And I just want to chime in here, Pete, with this question that I probably know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Does what true wellness also include whether you're in a state of pain or suffering?
Absolutely. You can be in wellness in a state of pain. It's absolute. It's something that I had to learn. How can I be in that experience of health and wellness and still have a chronic condition? How can, and I do that with my clients as well. You know, I have a 4-stage cancer client that's coming to me, and her wellness has, since we've started working together, has just gone so high. Her level of happiness, her level of peace, of acceptance, of stillness on the inside, of joy in her heart, has just expanded exponentially.
Wow. And I had to ask that question because I knew some people like me would be thinking about that. It's like, does that mean I can't feel pain and all this unhappiness? But no, there's it. And that's why I'm so glad that you answered it the way you did.
Yeah. And remember, pain is not something to be avoided. Pain is something to welcome. Pain is something to say, okay, you're here. Great. I love you. What do we need to learn now? Let's go.
Awesome, Peter. And so, Peter, man, as we wrap up the show here, I want to ask you a final one here. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Peter, that we couldn't cover on the show today?
Wow. Anything I wanted to add that we couldn't cover? Let's see. So many people don't know how to nurture themselves. And there's a difference between being selfish and self-centered. And most of us get that mixed up, and we think they're one and the same. And to know that when somebody accuses you of being selfish, it has nothing to do with you, and it's because they're not getting their needs met.
Yes.
They have something they want, and they're trying to get you to give it to them. And so when you actually go, you can deal with that. But when you actually be selfish, that's something big. I want people to be selfish. I want you to put yourself first. I want you to, when that, you know, you're flying and they do that example of the oxygen mask comes down, you put it on yourself first so that you can be of service to others. Selfishness is, I am important in the world and who I am matters. Self-centeredness is nobody else matters. It's only me. And that's really the difference. And when we start to put ourselves first and we actually practice selfishness, then our level of wellness, our level of health, our level of mental stability and emotional flexibility goes up and up and up. So do things like get a massage. Guys don't do that enough. I actually started getting pedicures because honestly, I don't want, I'm a former dancer. I'm a former ballet dancer. My feet were just beaten, right?
Yeah.
And so they are so much better even now because, boy, it feels good when that lady is giving me a foot massage and she's doing all that stuff down there. And my feet actually look nice now instead of gross. And it's such a relaxing experience that now I claim that and I go do that for myself because it makes a difference in the quality of my life. And so I do those things, and my ability to be a therapist, my ability to share in the world, my ability to help others goes up. So when I nurture myself, that's what the world is getting from me. And so I guess it's a call to all you guys out there that may be listening to actually start taking care of yourself, start nurturing yourself. Don't be afraid of all these opinions and judgments and all that bullshit. You go take care of yourself and get yourself in a place of real healing and feeling loved and taken care of. It makes a difference.
Love it, Peter. Love it, Peter. And so, Peter, thank you for jumping on the show. Thank you for sharing your message and all the wisdom that you have. If people want to find out more about your work and connect with you, where's the best place they should head to, Peter?
So I have all kinds of places people can connect with me. On YouTube, I have a channel there that's called Create Your Health, where they can watch a bunch of videos that I filmed. I have my Convergence Healing channel on YouTube as well. They can just type in my name or Convergence Healing. They can find me through my website at convergencehealing.com. I have a tea company if they're looking for some healing, healthy teas. And if anybody's interested, I have my a project that I'm just starting on Reverie TV. And they can join the subscription for Reverie TV using Health 2017 and get a big discount on that. So, yeah.
Awesome, Peter. We'll add that into the show notes.
Oh, and on Facebook. I would love to connect with people on Facebook.
Of course. We'll add them into the show notes as well. And so, cool. Pete, man, once again, thank you for jumping on the show, and thank you for making it back here into this world so that you can share such a powerful message, mate.
Thank you. And you're beautiful.
Thank you. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast, here today with the pain healer himself, Peter Bedard. And I know Peter wants you to befriend pain, but also we need to share this message out there so other people who are in pain, who are in suffering, get to hear his message. And the only way we can get this out there is to go on iTunes and to rate the show. So if you're in love with pain, throw us 5 stars. If you're not there with pain yet, I understand if you throw 1 star, and that's okay. But please make sure we get this out there so other people can hear his message and all the other guests' messages as well. Of course, you can head on over to the show notes over at richardfood.com to grab the resources and everything else that Peter has shared here. And of course, guys, go out there, go live with love, and go smash it, because you're beautiful, and enjoy you on the next one.